It's time for the show about the people and the places of the Carolinas with the occasional visitors. In addition to hosting the award-winning syndicated TV show Life in the Carolinas, Carl White writes a weekly syndicated column and now hosts this weekly show, the Life in the Carolinas podcast. Now you can hear the story about the stories. And now, here's your host, Carl White.
Seth, how are you?
I'm wonderful, Carl. Thank you for having me here today.
You know, I've been so impressed with your story. And the reason is not just because you're a great chef, you're a good cook. So anybody that can cook good, that's a thumbs up for me. Your family's been in the preservation of old buildings in Wilkesboro, which I absolutely love that fact. And then you have your restaurant business and all sorts of endeavors. But Seth Cohn, I wanted to sit down with you and chat about what I like to affectionately refer to as, here's a guy in Wilkes County who's been bitten by the racing bug.
Oh, absolutely. I think it bit me hard and I just fell in deep.
Yeah. Well, let's let folks get to know a little bit about you and your background, and a little bit about your family. Let's talk about that for a moment.
Sure. Grew up here in Wilkes County. I went to Wilkes Central High School. I'm a graduate in 1999. From there, I went to Appalachian State University. Spent 4 years in business school in that and graduated in my fifth year with that. Spent a little extra time because I really enjoyed Boone and I wasn't sure if I really wanted to leave it, but right. Wilkesboro's home. This is where I grew up. This is where I wanted to be, and this is where I wanted to raise my family at.
Nice. So so Appalachian State, so I get that. You did your thing there. Talk about your first adventures in Wilkes County.
Oh, my first adventure in Wilkes County. Let's see. It goes way back to the 80s, actually. I remember doing a lemonade stand outside my father's clinic, which is the Holistic Medical Clinic in Wilkesboro. Actually, is now my sister's clinic. He's retired from the medical field. He's retired from that. So he's looking forward to enjoying life a little bit more, traveling, and he's kind of left the rest of the development of the properties to my brother Grayson and I.
Wow. I mean, is that, when you say development of property, so that people understand what we're talking about, it's not, you primarily don't tackle just any property, do you?
Oh, no, not at all. We are specific of what we look for. My father was really big in historic preservation. He bought the historic Smithy building in the early 90s at what they called the auction of the century. It was on the front page of the New York Times, Town for Sale. Wow. At that point, he came in and there was people from all over the world would fly in trying to buy these properties. He bought the Smithy Hotel, and so the very first thing that happened is somebody came in, tried to make an offer on it. He said, well, what are you interested in doing with it? Well, I'm going to turn it into a warehouse for tire storage. My father said, absolutely not. This is a prime building in downtown Wilkesboro. It'll destroy the downtown. We're all about restoring the properties here, restoring the buildings, and revitalizing this town.
Wow. So was that the first historic building that your father bought?
It wasn't the first historic building. He's bought a few others, but that's definitely the most prominent building is the historic Smithy Hotel. And across the street from that is the J.T. Ferguson building, which is one of the most visually appealing buildings in the downtown. It's one of the few, I think it's one of three cast iron facades left in the United States. It was built by the Mesker brothers.
Wow. I didn't realize that it was that historically significant.
It is, absolutely. Wow. The Mesker brothers, you could actually buy the front facades out of a Sears catalog, and that's where they originally came from. But again, like I said, there's only three of those left in the United States, I believe now.
Wow.
And we're lucky to have one of them here in Wilkesboro.
There was a time in America that people bought their homes out of a Sears and Roebuck catalog. And, all sorts of buildings, as you said, the facades, the igloos, there's not many of those left now either. And I think that's just an interesting, snap in time, just to look back at how things used to be.
It was. I actually was scrolling through Facebook the other day and I saw an ad pop up and it had a little Sears and Roebuck catalog in there, and you could buy your house for $965. The whole house delivered for all the materials delivered to your location.
How many did you order?
Oh, if I could have ordered them, we definitely would have ordered it. We have currently, my father has with Cohn Enterprises well over 200 rental properties and historic buildings included in that. We're the largest private landowners here in Wilkes County. We love to develop the historic building aspect, and so that is what my main focus has been on the last, I'm going to say, 6 to 8 years.
Why is that important? Why is it important to, from your perspective and your family's perspective, to do your part to preserve historic buildings?
Like I said, I'm from here. I want my kids to grow up and have the pride of where I'm from, just like I do. It's just such a wonderful community to live in. You have people from all over the country who travel here and move here just to live here because of the atmosphere, the livelihood, everything around us. You look at the bike trails, you look at the water that we have at Wilkes County Dam. We have just beautiful air, clean water. You can't get those things all over the world. And one of the things that I was taught a long time ago by my father is you can never have any more land. I can be wrong about that because obviously in Dubai, they're creating more land in the water. Yeah. But until then, it typically was land was one of the most valuable assets you could own.
But Dubai needs to do that.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's the only way they can grow.
Right. In America, we have an abundance of land. So it's just that the utilization of it in the best possible way.
Absolutely. And that's something my father taught me many years ago. And I've just taken that since he's retired. My brother does all the construction and maintenance side. I do all the business side of everything. Right. So my brother Grayson is my partner in everything that we do. But I'm usually the face of it. You're going to see me out there. I'm just more of a people person. Grayson likes to do things behind the scenes, but I really like to be involved in the community. I want to be able to give back, and this is one way that I can give back to our town and the people who I grew up with.
So are you suggesting that it's not just a business, but it's a social responsibility as well?
Absolutely. It's the way I was raised. My father taught me where we're from, the people we grew up with. That is your future, and if you don't take care of that, then you'll lose that little bit of history, and that's me doing my part to be able to give back by restoring these buildings in historic downtown Wilkesboro.
Yeah, that's a nice legacy, isn't it?
Thank you. My father set it up 40 years ago, and if it wouldn't have been for my father, Dr. Cohn, we wouldn't be able to do these things.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the food business, just because I want to set the stage for what we're getting ready to jump into and kind of why it all kind of works together. But you've been in the food business now for how long?
Let's see. The original restaurants, I want to say, was in 1995 or 6 is when I started working in the restaurant industry. I spent the first couple years just doing bussing tables, washing dishes, learning the ropes. My dad was one of those people that you have to be hands-on, you have to learn. We had the Torioka restaurant in the early 90s. We had Mother Earth Foods and Eatery, which is our health food store that my wife now runs. And we still have the food side, but we've expanded it to add the cafe. I want to say after about 2 years of doing bussing tables and learning to wait tables, I was still a little young, so I wasn't able to do the full waiting yet, but I got a lot of experience in the restaurant industry. I started doing the cooking. I spent 6 years as a sous chef under Karen Sia. She was a French trained chef. She spent 7 years in France learning to do that before she came over here and started running our Torioka restaurant. She spent 6 years training me as her sous chef. So that is where I got the majority of my culinary experience. So I was trained in the French cuisine.
Wow. When you say that, it's a, that's a big background. I mean, from a food standpoint, a lot of people go to school, they get out of school, and then they step right in. But they don't have, at that time, the years of experience. So what you're saying is your dad said, son, you need to learn from the ground up. And that's taking care of people first. Do you think that there's a benefit from first learning how to serve the public? Does that help frame your mindset when you've had 2 years of that? Now you're going in the kitchen. Do you think a little bit differently because you know what people are asking for on the floor?
I do feel that made a big difference with why I'm so great at what I do. I learned from interacting with the customers first and seeing when things went wrong or when things weren't right, how the customers react. Right. So now when my kitchen, one of my rules is when you make the food, would you eat that? Would you be happy with that? Mm-hmm. So from the perspective, we don't send anything out of our kitchens unless we personally look at it and say, that looks phenomenal. I want to eat that. Now, you can't do that with everything, obviously, but I would try to do it with every object, every item that we can in there. Right. Probably one of my favorite lines in the restaurant industry is people like, I don't understand how you stay so thin, Seth, with all the food around. And I take a little bit here, a little bit there. Every time a fry comes up, I make sure I take the fry, whether I break it and make sure it's cooked all the way right, or if I take a bite out of it, I'm making sure that food's right before I send it out myself.
Right.
I spend right now 7 days a week in Dooleys Kitchen, which is my main restaurant. restaurant, Dooleys Grill and Tavern. I also have TwoBoros Brewery and Pizza. Don't get me wrong, I love doing the pizzas. We make our own fresh dough and everything, but Dooleys is home to me. That's where I really grew up. We had our first restaurant that I really worked in the 90s throughout there, the Mother Earth Cafe, and that's what led me full circle to be opening my restaurant, Dooleys, in 2003.
How many hours you work a week?
That's a tough one, truthfully. Between all my businesses, I probably spend somewhere of 70 plus hours in all my businesses working. In Dooleys, I spend about 40 to, I would say about, I'll take that back. I'm going to spend at least 55 to 60 hours a week in Dooleys. So there's probably a lot more hours. I don't keep track of them, as you can tell. I just work 7 days a week.
Seth, that's why you look the way you look.
That's it. It's running so much, man.
You never stop moving.
Jokingly, people who come in, they're like, Seth, I just saw you at TwoBoros and now you're at Dooleys, but you're back at TwoBoros.
Right.
Well, jokingly, I say that I'm like Frogger hopping across the street. If you remember the game, I'm dodging cars in and out, and you'll just see me dashing back and forth. People honking, I'm waving constantly at them. Half the time I recognize them as they go by, but sometimes I'm just in such a mindset, I've got to get one side or the other, that I'm like, hey guys, how are you doing? And keep on going.
The food business is not an easy business.
No, it's not. And especially the last few years, we've started to get it back, but the pandemic hit the restaurant industry a lot, really hard as a whole. A lot of my friends who are in the restaurant industry struggled. A few people closed. Unfortunately, that was probably the hardest time for any restaurant industry over the past 2 to 3 decades.
What were the things that, as a restaurateur, that you went home and those moments, when you just do like this, and you're like, what was that moment? Was there ever a time of where you're like, I just don't know if we want to do this anymore. This is so hard. Are we going to make it or not?
It was never a question of whether we were going to make it. It was more the question of family. Family is very important to me. Like I said, I was raised on very high family values. So for me, having 4 children, all of them younger than 12 years old. My oldest son, Werner, is 12. My daughter, Aurora, is 11. My middle son, Liam, is 6 years old. And my youngest son, Carter, is 3 years old. So being that I have 4 kids, I like to spend as much time as I can with them. And when the pandemic hit, that took away a lot of that time and put me back in the restaurant industry. We obviously, our biggest struggle was not just food costs going exponentially high, but the loss of labor. Everybody was forced out of work. We unfortunately, I can remember it very clearly, March 17th, we were told we had to close our doors. And unfortunately, March 17th, 2020, I lost not friends and coworkers, but family, because everybody who works for me is considered a part of my extended family.
Right. There are hard moments, but you're here, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that was probably the hardest thing to do, is for me to look at my staff and tell everybody, I'm sorry, guys, we have to close our doors. This isn't something that we want to do. It's something I never expected to do. Like I said, we had been there since 2003 when I established Dooleys. So for 17 years, I'd had my doors open and working in my own restaurants and running my own restaurants. And then the pandemic came along. I just opened TwoBoros Brewery in January of 2020. And then March of 2020, we had to turn around and shut that down. Now, the best thing I can say that came out of that was the community support. We had such a great community support. We were getting people calling. We were able to open our doors about a week later when Governor Cooper changed the ruling that allowed for restaurants to have takeout, carry out, outside dining. So I immediately called back my managers and my primary staff and said, hey guys, I want to get you back in here. I got my cooks back. I got my managers back for the front of house. They would handle the outside and the deliveries and the caterings and the events. And probably the best thing that came out of all of it was we were able to revamp our business focus, and we did an outside dining area. So we provided those. We doubled our seating capacity, going from 18 tables inside to adding 20 tables outside. We also added the delivery and catering side of the business. Now our catering business has risen to the top 3 here in Wilkes County. We do a lot of weddings and events, and that also led to me taking some of the historic buildings like we discussed and redoing those.
So it was definitely one of those moments that we can look at and say, oh, there's a silver lining.
Absolutely. I try to find the good in everything.
Yeah, that's good. We hear that with a lot of restaurateurs, some that, were enabled to, for whatever reason, to shift, to really focus on, okay, we can't have people in, so we're going to take it to them, or we're going to create another experience. That takes a bit of creative thought, not only creative thought, but then the the wherewithal and the commitment to make that happen.
It was definitely a significant investment to do that. And anytime you change your business model and your business plan, you're not going with the normal, you're taking what you're used to and you're completely changing that up. At that point, we had to add the outside dining, we put the heaters in the patios, and again, the catering side of it alone was just adding a whole new set of equipment that we weren't prepared for.
But the good news is, it sounds like, okay, COVID is behind us.
Absolutely.
For the most part, that's behind us. But this new aspect of your business is still there. So now you have a wider business model. Okay, we've got more catering, we've got outside dining we didn't have before, and now we're back inside hosting people as well.
Absolutely, and the business is just taking off. Again, great. We can't say enough about the community support that we have. Right. We have a wonderful local community here that was, again, backed us throughout the whole pandemic. They would call in and pick up their beer from us locally. They would say, hey, we love what you were doing. We want to still support you. We don't want to see this go anywhere. We don't know how long this is going to last, so as long as we can, we're going to support you. That also gave me the ability to add a lot more things that we could do. Like you said, the catering side of it, we were able to expand our kitchens, expanding our restaurants. We added 2 more kitchens. We had a fry kitchen that we added, and we actually added a whole nother prep kitchen in Dooleys. By doing that, I went from having pre-pandemic about 30 employees to around 50 employees post-pandemic. So it was a wonderful growth that we were able to do. And together, between all my businesses, I employ around 100 employees.
Wow. So that's 100 families at least
Absolutely.
You're helping support in the county.
Well, I want to say 100 families, but in reality, we are such a big family that a lot of the employees who work for me are family. So we'll have a husband and wife who work for us, or a father and daughter, or a mother and son. We like to make sure that include that. So where they have the younger kids who are coming along and they want their kids to be able to do something and teach them responsibilities, they're able to come in and learn what we've done here at Dooleys, and it creates them a well-oiled machine for them to learn from, and they're getting the experience they need to be able to go out in the real world themselves.
Nice. Well, Seth, that paints the picture of the food, right? So when we were visiting last year, maybe springtime, in Wilkesboro, in what I call the complex now. So you have the outdoor performance area, and for the first time that I can remember, driving through town, and I saw race cars sitting in front of your restaurant, in front of the courthouse, the historic courthouse, and there were people in a festival-like environment. And I stopped, and we visited and talked then. I noticed from that experience that Wilkes County was beginning to grow in a different way from the car culture. So if we look back in time, we saw everything was at the track. But now it's not just at the track, but it's part of the everyday culture. And you particularly were, when we opened this podcast, we talked about you being bitten by the bug. And if we think back in time when the track first opened and business people in the community would get involved, you're a business person. You were involved as a sponsor. Why don't you tell me, or tell all of us, how that happened? The very moment when someone come to you and said, "Would you sponsor one of our cars at the race?" Tell us how that all happened.
Yeah, I actually started way before the Speedway. That was the best part about it. It was growing up with friends here in Wilkes County and those connections that I made growing up. Jason Garwood, who is a good friend of mine that we grew up with, went to school together. He reached out to me and said, "Hey, Seth, I'm wanting to race at North Wilkesboro Speedway Revival. Would you be interested in helping me get out there and do that?" I said, "Jason, absolutely. Tell me what you need. We'll get out there and make sure it happens." So we got together. We met for lunch at Dooleys. We sat down. We had great lunch. He had great ideas. And I said, "Done. That's all you need." We worked it out. He came together, and next thing I know, he was ready to go for the racing. Based off of that, led into the next part, which has led to my newest development, the TwoBoros Performance Shop with Dylan Wilson. And Dylan came along and called me and said, "Seth, I saw your brewery. I would love to be able to be a part of this. I grew up at the racetrack. I grew up 300 yards from the racetrack. I would love to be able to race there for the Speedway Revival. Would you be able to get out and help me do something with TwoBoros Brewery?" And I said, "Sure, what can we do?" He came by, sat down, down. We had a few ideas. We discussed it. And that's really the groundwork that started TwoBoros Performance Shop, even though it was just a sponsorship last year from TwoBoros Brewery. And that's led into my newest business development, which is the race team.
Yes. That's the bug I was talking about. Yep. Oh my gosh. So literally you've gone from knowing someone growing up, and they come and see you, and you have a conversation. You're like, yeah, I'm in. Mm-hmm. So what did that I'm in mean? What did you do at that time? What was your role?
Well, at that point, I was still a little unsure about the racing industry as what it would really take. And I don't mean as far as what I want to be a part of it, but I honestly had no clue what it took to do a race team. It was a great experience to be able to get out there. Terry Parsons did such a wonderful job revitalizing the Speedway and bringing it back. Dale Jr.'s part of it. Kevin Harvick years ago testing here. And I did a few caterings for Joey Logano and Von Gittin Jr. And so those were really some of the first experiences I had with big drivers coming to this county and being able to develop this project. Right. And by doing that, I was able, and again, some of those big drivers have specialty needs. Dooleys is known for our specialty products. We are a gluten-free restaurant. 70% of our business on the weekends comes from out of town because of the gluten-free side of our menu. 100% of our menu is available gluten-free because I personally have celiac. So again, you asked what it takes to make our restaurants like that so successful. It's because I personally oversee every single item in there and make sure that it's something not only I can eat, but everybody else can enjoy too.
So wait a minute. So are you telling me that part of how this magic all come to be was because of your gluten-free food, that it actually helped attract some of the racing people because they also wanted that type of diet?
They do. You don't realize a lot of big racers like that, I don't want to use a bunch of names like that, but a lot of big time people, they have specialty diets that they have to stay on. And I did not realize that until they contacted us, and Terry called me and said, Seth, listen, I can't use the names, but I have some people coming to town. They have special diets. Would you be able to take care of this for me? Absolutely. That's what I'm here for. That's what we're known for. And that's one of the reasons that our catering is in the top 3 for that.
So another silver lining, had you not had celiac disease,
absolutely,
you may not be driven to create 70% of your menu to support people who need this type of diet.
Absolutely. Like I said,
wow.
100% of the menu is available for those people who do come to town. Again, 70% of them were from outside of the community. I don't know exactly how much is from inside the community that goes for that, but that is a huge draw for people who are coming out of it.
I'm just seeing the pieces come together.
Absolutely, it is. It's kind of a spider web. They all work like that. Okay. And if it wasn't for those little silver linings that I've grown up with and had to experience myself, it probably wouldn't be as successful and led into the connections that I was able to make.
Do you ever sit sometime in the quiet and just think about all the pieces and how it all works together and just be amazed?
Probably if I had time to sit and think of that. I sleep probably 4 to 5 hours a night. Most of my time that I'm home is spent with the kids. And so I go from work to work to work. And then I go home and it's homeworks, playtime, bedtime, brush teeth, bedtime, things like that. Make sure the kids are taken care of. And then once I wind down, I'll sit there and I'll think a little bit as I'm going to sleep. And then I'll wake up. I woke up about 4 o'clock this morning. I started to go and I laid in bed for about an hour and started working on my phone and getting a little bit of work done. And then I got up, went to my computer, and I started doing a little bit more things that I couldn't do from my phone. And then at 6 o'clock, I was like, time to go, take the kids to school, drop them off. And I went on in my restaurants. I started doing basic things such as changing fryer oils and getting prepped for the day. We cut all of our own roast in-house. We grind all of our own meat in-house. Those things right there are the reason that we're so successful and the reason that we attract these big names in catering business. And again, like you said, that's what led into the business of catering for the bigger groups and what led me to racing.
Yeah. All right. So now you have the doors open for you. You're actually meeting people, right? Because things happen from networking, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's what's happening at this point. So Terry calls you, hey, Seth, I've got some dietary needs. Can you take care of that? You say yes. What happens next?
At that point, we reach out with the producers of those events coming to town. They say, hey, this is what we have going on. I have a wonderful office manager, Jamie, and it's kind of like those two get together and they'll work everything out. I'm a hands-on person, so Jamie will say, Seth, this is what we have coming up. And if I wouldn't have somebody like that to keep me on track, I probably would get lost. So I do have to have a lot of help. I can't do it all myself, and I'll never take credit for all of it because it is a group group effort for everything we do. It might be me doing it all and me be the face, but again, I couldn't do it without the support of my wife, without the support of my family, without the support of my staff. So it's a great thing to be able to say, not only am I providing for these people, but they're helping me provide back to everybody else.
Do you ever slow down?
No, not at all.
So now we have people who are eating your food, who are in the racing world, and things are evolving. And then the idea comes up to have a bigger role within, the idea of cars going fast around the track. Tell us how the team ownership, how did that come to be?
Oh, that was great. I'm so excited about it. And one of my favorite things is racing right now. People tell me all the time, Seth, you do so much. What are you doing with racing? We see you on Facebook and posting pictures of working on a race car. I mean, how do you have time for all this? Truthfully, that's my downtime. That's what I enjoy. I grew up working on motorcycles and cars. So for me to be able to go on Tuesday night's our race team meeting, we get to go down to our race shop with our crew chief, Eric Wilson, who is Dylan's father. And we get to go down to the race shop. We work on that. We build the race cars. I just bought us a brand new car this year, so we're really excited about that. Dylan had been racing on a 2006 that he bought for his first car when he started racing, and it was a great car. It got the visual appeal for me. It got us out there. It got us what we needed to start. But really to take that next level and be on a competitive level, we had to add a new car. So this year I went out and bought us a new car. We started TwoBoros Performance Shop. That brought Dylan and I together. And it was really Dylan just reached out to me after the race last year and said, hey, Seth, would you be interested in sponsoring me again for a few races next year? I want to run full-time in the Cars Tour. It's a dream I've always had. I got to do North Wilkesboro Speedway this year. They're going to do it again next year for the All-Star race. We race Wednesday night in the Cars Tour of the All-Star race. A lot of people are familiar with the All-Star race, the Cars Tour because of Dale Jr. this past year, the spun drop car and coming out, placed third in that closing night of the racetrack revival. And being that, we made a connection with Dale Jr. there. Dale was doing his live cast at the racetrack revival, and he called our driver Dylan and a few of the other local drivers the future of driving because of the youth movement. We needed younger generation drivers like that to be a part of this. And Dylan was one of those drivers that just stood out. He did a live podcast from TwoBoros, and it caught the eye of people like Dale Jr. And since then, we've been able to work with those drivers and some of the bigger names of the industry and be able to continue developing our program. Again, Dylan reached out after the sponsorship and said, hey, I want to sponsor for this year. And I said, well, I'll give you one better. Let's start a race team. And he said, really? That's great, phenomenal. That's not what I was expecting, but if we can do that, it's a dream come true for me. And that made Dylan's dream come true by following in his father's footsteps, Eric Wilson, who was a Goodies Dash Series champion in the 90s, and he was able to follow with that and start doing it himself. So this year we'll be running full-time in the Cars Tour. We run all over North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia currently. We'll see a lot of big names coming to the Cars Tour this year with the purchase of the Cars Tour by Dale Jr., Kevin Harvick, Justin Marks, and Jeff Burton. So we're really excited about the purchase there because they're going to really take this Cars Tour program that Jack McNeely started to the next level. And it's one of those things that we would not have had the opportunity to be able to do this and know that we have a great sport going forward here if it wouldn't be for the bigger interest with these coming back to short track racing. That also is what led to the redevelopment of North Wilkesboro Speedway, Rockingham Speedway. Bristol obviously never went away, but that's such a great part of the community, those short track racing. And that's what,
important, right?
Absolutely. That's what we started on. That's where NASCAR was founded. And a lot of people don't realize this. We all know that NASCAR was founded at the Streamline Hotel in Daytona. But what a lot of people don't realize was that first meeting in 1947 took place after Enoch Staley held a race here that was only supposed to have 3,000 people and ended up having 10,000 people. Bill France Sr. was so impressed with it that he had a meeting at the Smithy Hotel, which is the building I own, and we have pictures of it, and we were actually talking about that with another news group who's doing a story on that with the formation of NASCAR. So it originally started with a meeting here in Wilkes County, went down to Daytona with all the track owners that created NASCAR.
What a history.
Absolutely. People don't realize that we have such a rich history here. Everybody knows about the moonshine. Everybody knows about the NASCAR being formed from that, but they don't realize that it was because of this one race that Bill came to that made all the difference.
Wow. That's incredible. Let's back up for a moment and talk about what it means to actually be an owner now. So how did things change from going from a sponsor, having the TwoBoros name on the cars? We saw it go around and around. We thought that was cool. So how has your life changed from going from that place to where you are now?
I would say one of the biggest changes is I actually get a night to relax, as I said. I go down and I work on the race car with my team, and it's a lot of team owners are not that way. They're not hands-on. I'm not calling any team owners out, but most of them, they own a team, they get out there, they do that. But with me, I'm a very hands-on person, as we've seen with all my businesses. So I love getting out there, working on the cars, and I'm super excited to be able to say, hey, I'm not just going to be standing up on top of a truck or on a trailer watching the cars go round and round. I'm going to be physically hands-on in the pits. I'm going to be working on the cars. I'm going to be not just paying the bills, but I'm buying the cars and now being a part of it. So it's not just somebody goes out and if they wreck a car, they have to replace it. It's now on me. So I've got to take care of all those little things like that. Again, I'm fortunate that I have such a great team behind us that all of the team members of TwoBoros Performance Shop all grew up in the NASCAR industry. So they've all retired from it. They've all been a big part of it.
So they've been to the show.
Absolutely. They've been there. They've won theirs. And this is, for them, this is a dream to be able to come back and help Eric and his son develop this program. And now we've got a family of drivers that is now coming on board with me, and I should say I'm coming on board with them, and we are now taking it to the next level and being able to give back to him and the community and be able to race again. Now, when I say give back to the community, a lot of people don't realize it, but we are the first full-time race team back in Wilkes County since the Speedway and Junior Johnson left.
It always helps if there's passion behind something. So is this, in fact, not only a business thing, but is it a passion product that also, because of everybody's enjoyment, it's a bit of good therapy for everybody?
It is, absolutely. Larry, Ty, Donald, Brent, all the guys come out. We all work together. It's a little relaxation to them. They take a lot of pride in it themselves. I couldn't do half the stuff they do, but I absolutely love learning. So for me, there's no such thing as just a business and investment, because if you just put money into something, you're only expecting a return. And if you don't get your return, you're not happy with it. At the end of the day, whether I got the return or not, it's an investment that I'm happy doing. So fortunately for me, we've had a great support from our sponsors. We've got some great names that are going to be coming out and announcing with that, and we're really looking forward to being able to give back to them like I was able to do with TwoBoros. I saw about a 300% increase in my business between Dooleys and TwoBoros just from the sponsorships alone. So my sponsors, I'm hoping to see get the same result out of it, and they'll be as happy as I was. But for me, it's a passion, because I'm able to get out there, and while it may be a business, just like Dooleys, just like TwoBoros, we take a passion in everything we do. From the gluten-free beer, foods that we make to the beers that we brew, there's no comparison to what we do. And everybody who comes in says, this is the best burger I've had. This is the best beer that I've ever tried. Not trying to brag, but that's just why, because of our passion.
Bragging isn't bragging if it's true, right?
That's it. We put our product in front of it, and then we back it.
But I can't help but to think that the hours of work in the restaurant is on a whole nother level, and the car project, you know, I don't know what you call it, but I look at it, Seth's car project. To me, that's something that you smile every time. I mean, I remember stopping there, and as you introduced me to several of the people that had been around for a long time, and I spoke with them. Some I'd met before, some I hadn't. But you were smiling the entire time. Anytime we talk about the cars, you're smiling. I don't know from the food standpoint if you're always smiling, because you're a very you talk fast, you're getting your story out, and I get that, but you're real focused. But when you talk about the cars, just like now, you can't help it. It just seems to make you happy.
It is. It truly is a happiness for me. It's like I said, the restaurant industry is a job, and that's always going to be my main focus and my main job. But like you said, the racing side of it and the car side of it is a passion, and that's the reason I'm so much happier with it. It's something I truly enjoy doing. Not that I don't enjoy cooking, because I take a lot of pride in everything I do. It's what I've grown up with. But it's the racing gets out there, and it really is front and center with what I'm doing, and it's given me an ability to learn something that I really have always loved, but I've never been able to do.
Has it taken a little stress off your life?
Yes. It has.
Yeah. So it's medicine.
The racing side is a medicinal side. Absolutely. Right. It gives me that break. It gives me the downtime that I normally wouldn't have. And I force myself to take it, even though I normally wouldn't do that in this situation. Normally, I wouldn't say every Tuesday night, I'm going to do this. I do it my regular schedule. Like I said, I just stay a little busy. Monday nights, I'm an assistant scout leader or Cub master. On Tuesday nights, I do my race team. Wednesdays and Fridays, I'm a soccer coach for the kids. And then on Thursdays, I do a little bit of everything on Thursdays, wherever need be. There's karate, there's dance, there's gymnastics, whatever we do locally, but it's always involved with the kids. I reserve Thursdays just for the kids.
There are people listening to this now, and they've become exhausted. It's just in listening to this. But it sounds to me like you're just living your best life.
I am. I've really said this year is going to be the best year of my life, and every year seems to get better and better. We've all had our ups and downs. You're going to deal with that throughout your life, but this year is definitely going to be the best year of my life.
Yeah. Let's talk about the future and not look into the crystal ball, if you will, but we can do a bit of prognostication, right?
Absolutely.
What do you imagine is in the future as it relates to the cars going fast? What does that look like?
We're going to continue to grow. We have a 3-year plan. We are currently 2 years ahead of our plan. So it's great. We expected to the first year just to get out, run a couple races with the team, build it up. We got picked as the Touring 12 member. So Dylan is one of the Touring 12 drivers for the Cars Tour. That is the prestigious group, basically, if you want to say. They follow the drivers around. The drivers do all the autographs and signing sessions. So Dylan is, we are fortunate to have Dylan to be a part of that with the Cars Tour, because if not, we would just be another driver in the tour. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because we would have done it regardless. But now it really gives us this opportunity to take our team to the next level. So with our performance shop, we now have race car rentals. That's something else we've added to it. So the true name of our business is TwoBoros Performance Shop and Driver Development School. Eric Wilson is the pit crew chief manager for Richard Childress Racing. So he has a lot of experience himself, not just as a driver, but managing teams and doing this. So he gets out there and he's put these connections together for us that we now work with some of the different charities, such as Speedway, children's charity, Pit Stops for Hope. We're really excited about being able to use those charities. I shouldn't say use. We're fortunate to have those charities with us to be able to give back to our community through. It also gives us the ability to expand our race team through our driver development program. So we hope as Dylan continues to drive, to develop his driving and be winning and being on the poles, being on the podiums at the end of the year, we're hoping to see our team not only win, but also as the Owners Points Championship. That's obviously something that I would love to see. Might not happen this year, but it's something we can always shoot for, maybe in the next few years. We also want to look to expand. So with the North Wilkesboro Speedway opening back up, we hope to be able to have some new programs developing to where you can actually rent the race cars, get out and test them and drive them yourself, do driver ride-alongs, rent the cars at other tracks. And currently we have a rental program in place to where we have a rental car that we're renting for Hickory races until North Wilkesboro opens back up, and then we'll rent for the Wilkesboro races. We would love to see Wilkesboro to host a full-time season again, not just the NASCAR circuit, but or the Cars Tour, but just to have a local circuit that you can go out to every Friday night or Saturday night or whatever night they choose to do that, and set that up and do a local division.
Throughout the next year, how many races will you be participating in?
We will be running in 16 full-time races in the Cars Tour this year. That will be guaranteed. Outside of that, we are not sure how many additional races we run. It'll depend on tracks. It'll depend on championships, additional races such as the Snowball Derby in Florida. We'd love to be able to race in some of these additional races, but it will kind of go throughout the year, and as we pick up a few more sponsors. As we all know, racing's not cheap, so we are fortunate that we're in a cheaper industry than compared to NASCAR. Typically a sponsorship like that runs $1 million or so on a race. A typical race for us is about $10,000. So there's a big difference in cost between what we race each race versus what a NASCAR race would be.
Right. But 16 races, to me, that sounds like for your first year of having an official shop, if you will. That seems fairly aggressive.
It is. It's going to be really aggressive. We race every other weekend right now. We'll starting March 11th. We'll be racing our first race of the season, and then we run through, I believe our last race is in October this year. That is scheduled for the last race, and then not sure about the the Tour Championship yet. That'll depend on standings at the end, how that goes, and then the Snowball Derby in Florida. We're really looking forward to aim for that in December.
Sure. And how many races will you attend?
I'll probably be I'm planning to go to 14 races right now. I know there are 2 races that I'm not going to be able to go to. My sister Ariel is getting married this year, so I'm not going to go to a race for that. I'll definitely be attending my sister's wedding. And then I have a trip planned for my wife and I's anniversary, so I got to make sure I put her first no matter what, because she's my big support behind me. And if it wasn't for my wife, Ashley, I wouldn't be able to do most of the things I do.
Sure. Well, it would be impossible with that schedule you talked about.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, she's an amazing woman. Yeah, she's an amazing woman. She raises our kids. I'm help as much as I can with it, but she also runs Mother Earth, her full-time job also.
Wow. Seth, you shared with us a lot. And obviously this won't be our last visit, because there'll be plenty of things to continue to talk about and just following this journey. And I can't help but to imagine that your life's getting ready to blossom as far as some experiences you've never had before, and maybe open up the horizon even broader. Do you think so?
Absolutely. I've met a lot of great connections through this. We've had a good couple programs that have been dropped in my lap that I wasn't expecting. Like I said, the driver development program, the cars racing development program, be able to use the racetrack once we can get through the All-Star race. Nothing will be able to be done till then. But once we get through the All-Star race, we have a lot of plans in place that we would really like to expand. We have the new brewery expansion that I'm currently working on. One of the biggest problems and complaints I will say right now about my businesses is it currently takes around 14 days to brew our average beer, and it takes up to 6 months to brew our specialty beers, such as the Bikini Bottom IPA, which is my personal favorite. It is a gluten-free IPA. The Good Gold Almighty we brewed for my brother's wedding, and those were the 2 first ones that our brewmaster Trey church.
TwoBoros, right?
This is at TwoBoros, and those are the first 2 beers that my brewmaster Trey brewed for us. And when we tried them, we were just like, this is absolutely amazing. However, they take 6 weeks to brew. We're selling out in 10 days. So it is a problem that is too good to have. With that case, we're going to be expanding our brewery operations this year. We're taking from brewing 28 barrels a month to 28 barrels a day. We'll be on the new production line.
Wow.
We'll be able to get to our distribution to where we really want to be, and we have a whole new manufacturing and warehouse facility that we're building currently right now.
So really, Seth, you're not you're not letting the grass grow under your feet, and you're getting to the wheat as quick as you can, it sounds like.
We are trying to develop and continue to grow. I want to get everything in place before the start of the season, which I feel like we have, because I really want to be able to enjoy racing more than, like you said, it's a business. At the end of the day, racing is a business, but it's also my passion and hobby. So I want to be able to do it and enjoy it and not have to focus on the business side.
Well, when you stop smiling, then I'll know that it's time for a break.
Well, it's usually more in my demeanor.
Right.
As you can see, I'm more of a laid back person. I'm not sitting up. This is a relaxation to me. It's a nice little break from the restaurant industry. I was cooking in the kitchen this morning before I came over here. I had a quick meeting with one of my sponsors, and then I wanted to get over here and discuss this with you.
Well, I'm glad that we had an opportunity to sit down and relax a little bit and chat. For those of you, for those people who are watching and just getting to meet you for the first time, they're going to say, that's him relaxed, doing all of that, and he's relaxed. But really you are. And there are a world of people, when we look at society now and our news media friends, it's unfortunate that bad news always gets so much attention. And I think it's because we, the people, respond to that. We watch it and we talk about it. But really there are so many more good things, right?
Absolutely. We have a saying in the restaurant industry, it takes 10 good things to make up for one bad thing. Well, in this situation, you hear 10 bad things usually before you hear one good thing. Right. I try to be the opposite. I want you to hear 10 good things for every one bad thing, because everything that I do, I want to make sure it's positive. So we all, again, have our ups and downs, but I try to stay positive in everything and see the good in it all. Whether I have celiacs and it caused me to have a restaurant that's successful from it, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing, though? When we sit down, we look at the bad or the challenges, and then if we're honest with ourselves and we see those challenges, we put them over here, and we see the good things, they're always more good than bad.
Oh, absolutely. People trying to focus on the bad. And I think a lot has to do with the way we were raised, the environments that we're in. My father was always a positive person with me. He always tried to show the good in it. If there was a negative, he's like, it's not worth the stress. Don't worry about it. The bad is always going to be there. It's how you handle it is what makes the difference.
Right. You're glad for that lesson?
Absolutely. My father's a very smart person, the smartest person I know. He raised me right, I feel like, and he raised me with manners. He raised me to think first before acting or speaking. So it's taught me a really good lessons throughout life. And if I didn't have good family values, then I wouldn't be able to pass them on to my kids or do the things that I'm able to do.
Why not? Three restaurants, 3 drivers.
That's it. I'm up to 7 businesses. I jokingly say I have to have a business per child. So that way, if one of them they don't want to work in one of them, then they've got one to fall back on. Now, I will stop myself on that because I really don't want my kids to be in the restaurant industry. Nothing against it. I love what I do, but I want them to be able to do what they want to do, not something that I put them into.
Yeah. Well, if you build the businesses to fund all that, then it's okay.
Absolutely. They run themselves. They're great. Restaurants, things like that, you're hands-on, but at the end of the day, if it's a good, again, have a good staff, have good employees, like I said, they're all part of my family, they're all my extended family, then I can take the time to be able to go to the races. I can take the time to spend with my kids and my wife. So again, it all comes down to treating your staff right, taking care of your staff, and they'll take care of you.
Seth, one more question. What do you love most about living in Wilkes County?
The ability to spend time with my family. That's it, hands down. We have such a great environment here, the outdoors, being able to do the things that we do. You have community life here is unlike anywhere else that I've been.
Life's good?
Life is great. It's life in the Carolinas.
Yeah. There you go. Seth, thank you so much. This has been great.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to the Life in the Carolinas podcast. If you enjoyed your time with us, please visit the show's website at lifeinthecarolinas.com. Join our mailing list, and we'll keep you updated every week on what we have coming up and other interesting things around the Carolinas. We value you as a podcast subscriber. We'll see you next week. And remember what Carl says, it's never a bad time for a good story.